Welcome to another episode of the Insurance Leadership Podcast. This episode is going to be a little bit different because this is kind of our year-end wrap-up for 2022. Hopefully it's been a great year for you. We know it's been a fun year on the podcast. We've had a ton of good speakers on the show. And so what we want to do is do about a minute to 2 minute clip from each one, kind of make it our highlight reel for 2022. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
One of the things I learned, and I've been doing this a long time, and I'd like to say that I'm good, that I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to say I'm just going to call it a gift from God that, I really woke up the day I was president and realized that in a given week, I've got 2 or 3 days to accomplish what I need to accomplish for my business. And so I've really been able to be very focused on my priorities for my business and take care of that first and then focus on the priorities for NAHU. So, the realization that time is limited, that's a good realization for most of us to have.
Big philosophy is that, there's always going to be hierarchy and there's always going to be roles and things like that. But respect is at the core, number one thing. And so it doesn't matter, whatever role, whether I'm addressing someone's addressing me, articulate in a way that showcases the respect for the opposite person. Let's try to communicate in solution-based responses, right? That removes any of that. And I think that's if I were to say, I leave a legacy, is going to be that everyone has the exact same respect in what they do. We just have different places we deploy our skill sets. And if we keep that at the forefront, then, we can actually ask to keep some of these egos at the door and let's solve the problem.
But it's that way in business too. When you grow a business, someone else wants your business. And they're going to innovate and do anything they can to get it and take your customers, take your revenue. And that applies to carriers, brokers, TPAs, pharmacy benefit managers. There's always somebody new chasing that hurdle, right? They're always chasing that ring. And so innovation allows us to stay one step ahead. Unfortunately, individual technologies are not in themselves sustainable competitive advantages. The sustainable competitive advantages for us as business people and business people in insurance is our approach, our process, our culture that we create for innovation.
So look, for a new agency starting out, what would you suggest? You got everything rolling, like you mentioned, kind of on a shoestring budget, don't have a lot of extra finances, trying to spend less than you make. How do you kind of get that ball rolling from a business generation standpoint, getting your first group, getting your first client, and then kind of after that, how do you keep that ball rolling to make sure you keep that pipeline of sales full so that you got money coming in down the road?
Yeah. Well, so, there's no substitute for activity. You got to have activity. And, what I believe and what I've actually convinced myself is that every single person that we come into, whether it was when we were selling life insurance, I know that there are some needs that they have, but it's just helping uncover those needs. And can you, generate that concern to make them want to, buy some insurance? Same thing applies to a business. Every business that we deal with, I know for a fact they're getting 10, 15, 20, 30, 40% rate increases. So, my famous line that I would always say is whenever I'd call, and there's no substitute for cold calling. And that is, I'd call them up and I'd say, hey, this is Rick Holmes. Did I catch you at a bad time? And they'd say no or yes. And if they said yes, then I'd call them back whenever they told me to. But then when they said no, I said, well, the purpose of the call is to have the opportunity to meet you. And if nothing else, make a new friend. And half the time they wouldn't even know why I was calling. I didn't say this is Rick Holmes in the insurance business. I'd say, I'd like to meet you. And if nothing else, make a new friend. And they say, well, exactly what do you do? And I said, well, if you're like every one of the clients that we work with, I am not kidding. Every one of them are getting 10, 15, 20% rate increases. And I say, they're scratching their head going, how am I going to help mitigate that?
Yep.
I said, well, that's the thing is when they meet me, I'm going to help them do that. And so I guarantee you, the one thing after this meeting, when we get through, you're going to say, I'm so glad I met Rick Holmes. And so that's what I would say to them. And before we left, I'd say, you remember that statement that I was going to get you to say? The one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to waste that business owner's time. They have already met with 100 people exactly like you. So you got to be prepared and be ready to show them something that they go, that was very well worth my time.
How do you figure out which markets, which acquisitions, which product diversification you go to? Are you looking for niche products? You looking for, hey, what are the brokers saying? Are you looking, hey, what's the market need, like the gig economy? That's something that's just really kind of gone full bore here in the last few years. How do you kind of decide which avenue to go after?
I think I think you come up with some kind of an algorithm that works for you, that takes into account barriers of entry, that takes into account ease of entry, that takes into account upside potential, and then, how quickly and how difficult will it be to expand in those kind of markets. So I mentioned, the Affordable Care Act did a lot for businesses like yours and ours, whereby it opened the door to, it kind of created that high deductible health insurance marketplace. And we do not sell health insurance. What we do is we sell things that wrap around health insurance, that make it easier for consumers to afford coverage. So that's a huge market potential for, I think, any insurance company to think about.
What is your favorite lesson, or what's your favorite principle that you've taken from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership?
Great question. Obviously they're 21. Maxwell would say, hey, all these laws are important. He would say all these laws, can stand alone. All these laws will challenge you, and all these laws will hold you accountable. But really, the biggest, and I think probably the most, famous quote of John Maxwell, at least one of them. He has so many. He's been around for like 100 years, but my favorite one is, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I think we live in a culture where people look at your title, and they look at, where you are on the org chart, or they look at your pay, or they look at, your house, your vehicle, whatever, and they think that you reach a status, or you reach a level of, quote, leadership, when you get a title or get a piece of paper. So, we open those sessions and we say, look, like, if you're here, you're already a leader, because leadership is influence. It's nothing more, nothing less. And we all have the ability to influence. You can influence people below you. You can influence people beside you, and you can influence up. So leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And if you take that approach, I think, it kind of flips a lid on what a lot of us believe, from a leadership perspective. You can't make a decision if you're not the CEO. You can't, do this if you're not the CFO. And it's simply not true.
What's kind of that process typically look like, kind of start to finish?
I would say most clients don't have all their ducks in a row. They really haven't. They have, more often than again, they saw a competitor and they want to do this and this and they want to tweak this. But then they have, like you said, they haven't thought about their group sizes or their markets. And there's a lot of questions. I got to compliment Morgan White and your management. You guys have more products well thought out than anybody else. It's really nice. And then you have some clients who have 2/3 of the product design done, and this is especially for the larger ones. And then it has to go through committee, and they'll call me up and say, "Hey, can you do this right away?" And I was like, "Sure." And I'll clear my deck and say, "Let's get going." And now I got to go through committee, and it takes a year for them to make their product decisions, and if they ever get it done. It can be a frustrating process.
Well, I think that the other thing that we did is we looked for niches. We can't compete against the Prudentials and the MetLifes of the world because we have to do it a little different, and we have to be able to be in a place where we could make a better profit than maybe they could because their volume is so big. And I think, you and I have talked about this before, Ryan. What Zig Ziglar says is every great idea is just a slight variation of someone else's idea. And the Premium Saver is, which is our flagship product, is exactly that.
Really, one of the reasons that we are where we are today is because David really stays in touch and involved in product designs and in watching the results of those products. And we were so small back when we first started, and we're still relatively small, but we can make changes overnight. If we see a product that's not working or a product that needs to be tweaked, we don't hesitate to make changes, and we can make them very quickly because we're nimble and can do that. And that's kind of been David's philosophy. If you got a loss, cut those losses quickly.
But what do you do when someone brings you an issue maybe and you don't really see it as an issue, but you're still trying to listen to them and let them know they're being heard, but at the same time you may see it differently, and how do you kind of handle those type of situations?
First I want to try to listen to them. That's critical in building the relationship. Not just listen to them, but really hear from their perspective. What do you mean by that? Why is this a big concern to you? Tell me, what are you thinking about this? So I'm trying to get into looking at things from their perspective first. And then, like I said just a minute ago, I want to know what kind of solutions they've thought about. Because first of all, they've been thinking about the problem longer than I have. So I want to know, what are you thinking? What are you thinking about the way to get out of this problem? Have you talked to others about it? What are their suggestions? And I don't really want to give them my opinion unless they first ask me for my opinion. So first I want to listen, get their perspective, hear what they think they can do to resolve it, or what other advice they've come across. And if they invite me to give my perspective, I will be more than happy to do so. And then lastly, I try to keep everything confidential and let them know that this is going to be confidential, unless they give me the permission to share it.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Insurance Leadership Podcast. We wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And here's to making 2023 the best year we can. Thank you.